The room glows warm and soft, like the city is holding its breath. Naledi stands under a string of tiny lights, her dress catching each sparkle. She is the design lead everyone respects, and tonight she is simply a woman in love. Tayo moves through the crowd with that quiet grace he has, greeting people with a calm smile, always circling back to her. Glass walls show Kasiwa City shining outside, and music hums like a secret. Imani leans in for a hug that lasts a beat too long. Her smile is bright, her eyes a little sharp. She makes a small joke about rushing into forever, that lands like a tiny stone in water. A stranger's DM flashes on Naledi's phone for a second, the kind that feels wrong even before she opens it, and when she looks up, Imani is watching. A side eye slides across the room, quick and heavy. Tayo squeezes Naledi's hand. He does not see the currents yet. Waiters float by with citrus drinks and oysters. Friends cheer during a toast. Someone shouts that this love will outlast the skyline and everyone laughs. Still, a thin thread of cold weaves through the heat. At the balcony, Imani compliments Naledi's ring, then asks if she is sure about everything. The words are light. The tone is not. Naledi brushes it off, but she feels the tug in her chest. Love looks perfect tonight. It glitters. It sings. Somewhere in the corner, the first shadow opens its eyes. Imani moves like she has rehearsed this for months, calm on the outside and busy with small, cruel plans inside. She learns Naledi's routines, the names of the people who text her, even the times Naledi leaves the studio. Then she makes things that look real. A string of messages appears on Naledi's phone that were not there before, words rearranged so they sound like betrayal. A voice note is slowed and clipped until the meaning bends. Imani pays a market seller to point out a woman who looks like Naledi, and the seller nods, saying he saw them together at Kaliso Market. Small things gather into proof. When whispers leave the corners and move into the family group chat, pressure folds in fast. Aunties call with concern. Cousins drop in with eyes full of questions. The tone at family dinners changes from warm to careful. Tayo asks Naledi about the messages with a voice that softens and then tightens. Naledi reads and rereads the notes until the letters blur and her heart thuds in her throat. She tries to explain, to show receipts and timestamps, but doubt is sticky and finds purchase. Imani keeps her face smooth. She leans into sympathy and lets others fill the room with doubt. One rainy evening the city looks wet and bright with neon, and Naledi walks under the lights with Tayo beside her. Voices from a passing group mention what they have seen. Someone stops to show a seized screenshot. The world narrows into the two of them and a question that will not quiet. Tayo searches Naledi's eyes for truth. She feels the weight of family and the chorus of small accusations. The bracelet on her wrist, a simple gold band Tayo gave her, slides as she moves and falls unnoticed into a puddle. The cool water catches it and the city's lights blink on the metal like a timer. Naledi feels a cold that is not only the rain. In a voice that tries to stay steady, she tells Tayo she cannot do this anymore, that maybe they both need to breathe, to find clarity apart. Tayo blinks. He wants to believe her. He wants to fight. But the noise is loud. Imani stands across the promenade, half hidden by steam and neon, and for one brief, cruel second the smile that touches her mouth is not disguised. It is small and private. The crowd moves on. Street vendors shout. Cars pass like heartbeats. The city keeps its rhythm while everything between Naledi and Tayo thins. He watches her walk away and she feels the bracelet cold on her palm. The promise that was a future has been unstitched with clever lies. Imani slips back into the laughter of relatives, her eyes bright with what looks like relief. But under the lights, where the rain sings on concrete, the first cracks have begun to show in a story that seemed unbreakable. Naledi wakes early the week after the breakup and does not call anyone, not even Tayo. She ties her running shoes while the city is still soft, and she goes to the pier where the sun lifts slowly from the water. The cool air clears her head. Her legs move in a steady rhythm, and with every step the tightness in her chest loosens a little. After the run she eats a quick mango and opens her sketchbook, drawing lines that feel honest and plain, not grand or dramatic. Design work keeps her hands busy, and the quiet nights alone let her think without the static of other people's opinions. Friends check in, bringing coffee and small, steady kindnesses, and she accepts them without drama. She does not post about pain. She does not call for the kind of public satisfaction that would make her feel smaller in the end. Instead she listens, studies, and learns. Little things start to make sense. She replays the warped voice note until a tiny hitch in the audio stands out, a gap that should not be there. She compares timestamps and notices the delay is always the same, like a fingerprint. She remembers the market seller who had stared a little too long at her during the engagement. She walks to Caliso Market on a clear morning and talks to the vendors, not with anger but with plain questions. One man remembers helping a customer who matched Imani's description, and he even recalls which day she asked about Naladi's schedule. Naladi finds the prepaid SIM card number in a trash bag near the studio where a delivery driver had dropped packages. The number is linked to a burner phone that popped up in the family chat as an unknown contact. When she plays the messages through a different app, the glitches look edited the way a cheap scarf looks wrong in close light. Each clue feels small but true, like a thread she can follow through a dark room. She thinks about revenge, the kind that burns and then leaves you cold, and decides she will not go that way. She will not plant traps or write long public confessions. She will not mirror the small violence that broke her life for the small pride of hurting back. Instead she makes a vow in the quiet of her studio, she will be better evidence than any lie, and she will let the facts move at their own slow, stubborn pace until they arrange themselves into the shape of truth. She will live plainly, with work and friends and the lightness of someone who has chosen to keep their hands clean. And while she keeps living, she will let the world watch. If Imani wants to believe her version of the story, that is on Imani. Naladi will only show up as herself, steady and unhurried, and when the small lies start to fall apart one by one, she will let Imani see the pieces. That, she decides, will be enough. Naladi keeps showing up where life feels useful and true. She gives a short talk at Nyota Hall about design that helps people, the kind of talk that is full of simple ideas and honest mistakes, and people nod and come to ask questions afterward. She helps run a small charity pop-up in Lumina Bay Gardens, handing out meals and fixing tiny things with her team, and she laughs easily with the volunteers as if she has no weight on her shoulders. On warm evenings she goes to Marembe Heights with friends, where they sit on the rooftop and share stories and music while the city looks soft below them. She keeps her phone in her pocket more often than not. She accepts invitations but does not chase anyone. Slowly, quietly, Naladi becomes steady in a way that is not loud. Teo sees it. He notices how she listens, how she remembers small details, how she gets up early to sketch ideas and stays late to help a neighbor with a poster. He begins to sit near her at events, not pushing, just near, smiling at the same small things she does. Their old chemistry returns not in grand gestures but in shared cups of tea, in the way their knees touch under a low table, in the comfortable silence on a late bus ride. Each moment is small but true, and it pulls them together without drama. Imani watches from the sides and feels crowded by their calm. She starts to fight back in the only way she knows. She posts things that are half true and mostly mean, short messages and images that try to make people doubt again. Naladi does not answer most of them. She lets her life be the answer. The posts light up for a brief time, then fade, because the community sees her work and her steadiness and remembers who she is. Imani grows harsher. One night at Baco Lagoon Bridge a car brakes hard near Naladi and her friends. It is messy and frightening, and for a moment people say it could have been an accident. Naladi walks away shaken but not broken. Friends ask questions about who was following them. Someone mentions a shadowy car. Naladi chooses caution. She files a quiet report and does not make it a show. The near accident scares people and also makes others look closer at Imani. Small things Imani said begin to slip. Her smile, once polished, looks forced. Volunteers at the charity remember Imani asking odd questions about schedules and routes. A market seller mentions a call from a woman who sounded like her. These small slips pile up, not as loud proof but as a pattern that does not line up with her calm mask. Meanwhile Naledi and Tayo continue to rebuild trust with small, human acts. He brings plain food when she is tired. She sketches for him a tiny map of a future morning together. They do not promise forever in big words. They promise to keep showing up. The city keeps spinning, light steady, and the truth begins to make its way back into the open like sunlight through buildings. The family dinner at the Kisiwa City Cultural House feels heavy in a way the engagement night never was. Long wooden tables hold platters of food and soft lantern light, but no one rushes to fill the quiet. Naledi sits steady, wearing a simple dress, and across from her Imani looks smaller than she did in the posts. The elders are here, calm faces that carry family weight. Naledi puts a small stack of papers and her phone on the table and looks up so everyone can see she is not trying to shout or shame. She shows timestamps that do not match the messages, screenshots that point to a prepaid number, and a grainy CCTV frame that holds a scarf the vendors recognized. She speaks in plain sentences about things anyone can check, and she names people who can confirm the facts without drama. No one gasps because she does not ask them to be shocked. She simply lays the pieces where they belong and gives the room a chance to look. At first there is an awkward hush. Then a cousin asks about the SIM card and an aunt opens the family chat to show the unknown contact. A neighbor remembers the exact day a market seller called and says the seller had asked odd questions about Naledi's schedule. Slowly, small details line up the way wood grain matches when you hold two boards side by side. Imani's face tightens and her voice cracks on a thin defense. Finally she says she never found the love she wanted and that seeing Naledi move toward hers felt like a steady hurt she could not bear. The elders speak with clear authority and set simple hard boundaries. They demand respect, insist on counseling, and ask that Imani step back from accounts that spread harm. Tayo listens and then quietly tells the family he believes Naledi because her evidence is calm and because he knows her well. He takes Naledi's hand and does not let go. The air changes as people who were uncertain breathe easier. Imani breaks down with a real sob that is not for show. She apologizes, messy and small, and says she will seek help to understand why she chose to hurt someone she loves. The family agrees to protect Naledi's peace and to keep Imani accountable. They do not make a spectacle. They set structure, hold each other, and make plain rules to follow. Outside, the Kisiwa skyline keeps shining, but inside the cultural house something shifts. Naledi feels tired but not broken. She has not shouted or begged. She did the slow work of truth and let it do the rest. When the elders nod and the room exhales, the spell that bent the story begins to break and the city seems to make room for a quieter future. Later, at the garden gate, people quietly congratulate them and the first small smiles return, hesitant and honest, like sunlight after rain, and life starts again. Gossip slows down like a tide that finally pulls back, leaving the shore cleaner and quieter than before. People stop refreshing their phones for new posts. Neighbors begin to talk normally again. At work Naledi shows up steady, greeting the same faces, doing the honest small tasks that make a studio run. She meets friends for coffee, helps a volunteer set up a table, and sends short messages that feel like real answers, not drama. Tayo is there in the small places. He brings her a plain sandwich when she forgets to eat, he sits with her while she fixes a sketch, and he listens when she talks about light and line. They do not make speeches about forever. They make dinner plans and leave notes on each other's laptops. This is how trust grows back, in tiny, repeated acts that do not need an audience. The town notices. People who were once unsure see that Naledi keeps her work, keeps her kindness, and that Tayo keeps his calm. Imani loses the last of her followers and the shows of power no longer hold. She finds herself at the Nyota Heights overlook on a night that is sharp with stars. A friend who will not let her hide brings her there and asks hard questions instead of easy comforts. For the first time, Imani faces the small empty places inside her that she had tried to fill with noise and harm. She breaks down. It is a quiet, raw moment. The friend stays. Later, in Lumina Bay Gardens where people come to breathe and to listen to music, Imani stands before a handful of neighbors and says things that hurt to say and help to hear. She apologizes. Her words are not neat. She does not ask to be forgiven right away. She accepts clear boundaries. She agrees to counseling and to steps the family asks for. The apology is simple and public enough that people can see she did it, but it is not a performance. Time matters now more than words. Naledi keeps living with her quiet rules. She does not gloat. She does not punish. She chooses steady kindness and firm limits. Teo helps. One afternoon, while they walk near the river, Naledi's bracelet slips from her wrist and falls into a patch of grass. It is the little gold bracelet Teo once gave her, worn soft by years. He bends, picks it up, cleans the tiny smudge of dirt from the metal, and clasps it back on her wrist. There is no speech, no dramatic scene. He simply closes the circle that had been opened. That single, small action says more than any long apology could. It says I am here. It says I see you. Around them the city goes on, people return to routines, and trust grows like a small plant tended daily. Imani begins therapy, and she learns to hold the space she once broke. The family keeps rules that keep everyone safe. Naledi and Teo do not promise that nothing will ever go wrong. They promise to keep showing up, to choose calm, and to let kind, steady acts build the life they want. The late afternoon light washes the vineyard in gold and everything feels small and gentle. People sit on blankets, a guitar hums, and children run between the rows of vines. Naledi wears a simple dress and a quiet smile. Teo leads her down a narrow path where the view opens to the valley. He is calm, the kind of calm that is honest and steady. He kneels without fanfare and takes her hand. He speaks in plain words about mornings and small breakfasts and the ordinary promises that make a life. He asks if she will keep showing up with him, not for a moment but for the slow work of years. Her breath catches, then eases, and she says yes. The crowd around them claps softly, a ripple of real joy, not the staged kind that used to fill other nights. From a distance Imani watches. She does not stand in the way. Her face is not empty but real. She looks small among the music and lights, but she looks honest. She has learned the hard lesson that hurting someone does not heal the hole inside you. Watching Naledi and Teo, something in her loosens. It is not a clean victory. It is not the end of learning. But it is the first honest quiet since the lie began. After he slides a thin ring onto her finger, Teo slips the bracelet back onto her wrist with a careful hand. They laugh in the kind of way that comes from relief and love both. Later, as speakers play a slow song, Naledi lifts her voice in a small toast. She says that love does not need proof or proof piled like trophies. She says it only needs to be seen and lived. People around them nod because they have watched the slow work of truth. Imani steps away to the edge of the vineyard and breathes in the warm air. She will face the days ahead with what is left of her honesty. For Naledi and Teo the future feels quiet and possible. They walk back to their friends hand in hand. The music follows them, gentle and sure, like a promise kept.